What's good? What's good? You're listening to Raggedy Ass Bitch TV, where we talk about the one-sided relationships in your life. I'm your host, and today we're discussing something that makes conversations feel like interviews. I'm talking about people who never ask you questions, people who only talk about themselves. Let's get into it. Okay, so you know the type. You're talking to them. Could be a friend, an acquaintance, a coworker, and they're just going off. They're telling you about their day, their problems, their drama, their life. And you're listening. You're engaged. You're asking follow-up questions. Oh, really? What happened next? How did that make you feel? What did you do? And then they finish. And there's a beat of silence. And they don't say, "So, how are you?" They don't say, "What's been going on with you?" They just move on to the next thing about themselves. And you're sitting there like, cool, glad I could be a therapist today. And listen, I'm not saying every conversation needs to be perfectly balanced. Sometimes people need to vent. Sometimes you are there to listen. That's fine. That's what friends do. But when it's every single time, when you never get to talk about yourself, that's a problem. Because now it doesn't feel like a friendship. It feels like you're just an audience. You're not a person with your own life, your own feelings, your own expectations. You're just a sounding board for their life. And you know what's wild? Sometimes you try to share something and they just don't engage. You're like, yeah, so I've been dealing with this thing. And they cut you off. Oh, that reminds me of when I wasn't done. I wasn't finished talking. But apparently, we're back to talking about you now. Or they'll let you finish. But you can tell they're not really listening. They're just waiting for their turn to talk again. And then there are the people who ask you a question but don't actually listen to the answer. They say, "How are you?" And you start to answer, and you can see it in their eyes. They're not listening. They're just waiting for you to finish so they can talk again. So you cut your answer short just to say, "I'm fine." And then they immediately launch into their thing. Oh, good. So anyway, I have this thing happening. They didn't actually care how I was. They were just being polite. And let me tell you what this actually does to people. Because when you're in a one-sided relationship like this, it affects you. You start to feel invisible. Like your life doesn't matter. Like nobody cares about what's happening with you. You start to shrink. You stop sharing. You stop trying to talk about yourself. Because every time you do, you get interrupted or ignored. And eventually, you start to wonder if you're boring. If maybe your life isn't interesting enough. If maybe that's why nobody asks. But that's not it. That's not it at all. The problem isn't you. The problem is them. They are so focused on themselves that they don't talk about other people and what they're going through. They're so focused on themselves that they forget other people exist. And let me break down the different types of people who do this, because there are variations. Type 1, the chronic venter. This person always has drama, always has problems, always needs to talk, and you're always there to listen. But when you try to share your problems, they don't have time. They're too stressed to hear about your stuff. They're going through it and can't handle anything else. So you have to be there for them, but they don't have to be there for you. That's not a friendship. That's being someone's unpaid therapist. Type 2, the self-obsessed. This person genuinely believes their life is the most interesting thing happening. Every story you tell reminds them of their story, which they think is better. Every experience you have, they've had a bigger version of it. And they're not trying to one-up you necessarily. They just genuinely think their stuff is more interesting. And because of that, they don't think to ask you about you. Because why would they? Their life is where the real action is. Type 3, the oblivious. This person doesn't mean to be selfish. They're just genuinely unaware. They don't realize they're doing it. They talk about themselves because that's what's on their mind. And when you talk, they relate it back to themselves because that's how they process things. They're not trying to be a bad friend. They're just lacking self-awareness. And honestly, this is the most fixable type, because if you point it out to them, they'll usually try to do better. Type 4, the conversational narcissist. This person knows exactly what they're doing. They know the conversation should go both ways. They just don't care. They want the attention. They want to be the center of the conversation. They want to be the star. And everyone else is just background noise. This is the worst type because they're not oblivious. They're just selfish. But here's what I think is really happening with most of these people. I think they're so consumed by their own stuff that they genuinely forget about other people and that they have lives too. They're so focused on their own drama, their own problems, their own excitement, that it doesn't occur to them to ask about anyone else. And that's self-centered. I'm not saying they're bad people, but they are definitely not being good friends. Because friendship is reciprocal. It's not just about having someone to talk to. It's about having someone to talk with. And when the conversation only flows one way, that's not a conversation. That's a monologue with an audience. And you deserve more than that. You deserve friends who are curious about your life, who remember what you told them last time, who check in, who ask, how did that thing go? You deserve friends who see you as a whole person, not just a sounding board. Because here's the thing, relationships are reciprocal. You can't just take all the time, you have to give too. And part of giving is showing interest in the other person's life. It's asking questions. It's remembering what they told you last time. It's checking in. It's saying, hey, how did that thing go that you were worried about? That's what makes someone feel valued. When you never ask questions, you're sending a message. You're saying, I don't really care what's happening with you. I just want to talk about me. And that hurts. That makes people feel small, unimportant, forgettable. And eventually, they stop trying to share. They stop trying to be part of the conversation. Because what's the point? And here's what happens in these one-sided relationships. The person who never gets asked about themselves starts to pull away. They stop reaching out. They stop sharing. They stop making effort. Not because they don't care about the friendship, but because they're tired. Tired of always being a listener. Tired of never being heard. Tired of feeling invisible. And then the other person, the one who never asked questions, doesn't understand why the friendship is fading. We need to talk all the time. We used to talk all the time. What happened? What happened is you never made space for them. You never showed interest in their life. You took and took and took and never gave anything back. So, if you're someone who does this, here's how you fix it. Step 1, after you finish talking about yourself, pause. Consciously pause. Step 2, ask a question. Any question. What about you? How have you been? Step 3, listen to the answer. Don't just wait for your turn to talk again. Actually engage with what they're saying. Step 4, ask follow-up questions. Show that you're paying attention. Show that you care. Step 5, remember what they told you. Next time you talk, ask about it. How did that thing go that you mentioned last time? It's not complicated. It just takes effort. It takes awareness. And if you're someone who's always the listener, you're allowed to bring it up. You can say, hey, I feel like we always talk about you. Can I share what's been going on with me? And pay attention to how they respond. If they say, oh my God, yes, I'm sorry, tell me, and actually listen, okay, they were just oblivious. They can learn. But if they get defensive, if they make it about them again, if they minimize your feelings, that tells you everything you need to know. Because here's the thing, you deserve friends who are interested in your life. You deserve friends who ask questions, who remember, who care. And if someone can't do that, if they can't see past their own life long enough to notice yours, that's not your friend. That's your audience. So, if you're someone who does this, start asking questions. Make it a habit. After you finish talking about yourself, ask, "What about you? How have you been?" And actually listen to the answer, because people will notice, people will remember, and they'll appreciate that you care enough to ask. And if you're dealing with someone who never asks about you, you can bring it up. You can say, "Hey, I feel like we always talk about you. Can I share what's been going on with me?" And if they react badly, that tells you everything you need to know. Conversations should go both ways. Friendships should be reciprocal. And you deserve people who show up for you the way you show up for them. Don't settle for less. That's it for today's episode of Raggedy Ass Bitch TV. If this made you realize you're that person, it's okay. Now you know. Fix it. Next time, we're talking about people who give backhanded compliments, so buckle up for that mess. Until then, stay raggedy, stay curious about others, and remember, conversations should go both ways. Until next time, peace.